Hello and welcome to or back to my channel. Today is going to be part one of however many parts of how to raise a conservative daughter. So I saw Classically Abby recommending this on her Instagram and, well, I like to torture myself, so here we are. The book is 11 chapters long and I hope I won't have to do an individual video for every chapter, but we'll see. So right away when I saw the title, I wondered if there was also a guidebook for how to raise a conservative son. If there is, please let me know because I'm really curious as to how that would be different. I've gotten halfway through and some parts aren't bad, but... So if you think back to last summer when Antifa was being blamed for pretty much everything going on in this country and someone made a cartoon of, some man saying, "It was Antifa!" And then someone else saying, "Is Antifa in the room with us right now, Ted?" That is what this is, except replace Antifa with the left, because pretty much every chapter has something about the left in it, and it's never anything complimentary. I'm also wondering who exactly she thinks the left is, because they don't really seem that widespread to me. I mean, yeah, sure, on YouTube maybe, but in, say, Congress, not so much. I mean, is Nancy Pelosi the left? I don't think so. So we'll start with the introduction where Michelle Easton waxes poetic about becoming a parent. And then how, after you wax poetic about the beauty of it all, you realize that, now you have to raise this child. And some days it's really hard. And parents assume that their offspring will absorb their family's values simply by being part of their family. But no, Michelle says it requires more. "We don't know what happened," they tell me with pain in their voices. With pain in their voices? Is it really that bad if your kid believes differently than you do? "We gave her every tool, every advantage. And yet one day we looked up and realized our little girl had grown up and rejected our family's traditional values and beliefs. What happened? Where did we go wrong?" So Michelle's heart goes out to these families, and I really think her sympathy could be better spent elsewhere, but all right. Toxic social media, radical feminist indoctrination in schools, corrosive messages from Hollywood and the entertainment world, a leftist media that stokes radical anti-American movements, the dizzying array of cultural forces aligned against families is real and immediate. Okay, so I do agree that social media can be toxic, but what is the radical feminist indoctrination in schools? I mean, is there like some sort of factory where all school teachers go to have all their personality and personal beliefs beaten out of them so they all teach the same radical feminist indoctrination? I imagine, considering how large the United States is, that would be a pretty tall order. And it's been a while since I was in school, but we didn't have any feminist indoctrination in my school, let alone radical feminist indoctrination. But yeah, in the comments, please let me know if you experienced radical feminist indoctrination while in school, and also what that looked like, because I'm really curious as to what that would be. I disagree about the corrosive messages from Hollywood and the entertainment world, although it is kind of funny considering, didn't Ben Shapiro recently do something about movies that were accidentally conservative? And the leftist media that stokes radical anti-American movements. I need some sources for this. Michelle here has the blueprint for how to indoctrinate your child into your beliefs without leaving room for anything else. So you have to instill the right pillars of belief, core conservative values and ideas, and then strengthen those beliefs through practical, consistent, real-life application. The trick is knowing which pillars to instill and the best ways to teach them. Some parents will point out an important conservative concept, such as limited government or the pro-life position, to their daughter as if they are pointing to a star in the sky, but unless they explain how that star connects to those around it, she is unable to see and internalize the bigger constellation of conservative meaning they're trying to teach her. Or maybe your daughter was like, limited government, but we have to regulate what women do with their bodies. How does that make the government limited? Maybe her thought process went somewhere along those lines and she rejected that idea herself. And if you're wondering what credentials Michelle Easton has to write this book, After receiving presidential appointments from Presidents Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush to serve at the U.S. Department of Education, and also working for them at several other departments for the full 12 years of their administrations, I realized there was a need for an organization that could mentor and support conservative girls and women. So in 1993, she founded the Clara Booth Luce Center for Conservative Women. And I'm going to go ahead and say that she much prefers Reagan over Bush 1 because she quotes Reagan a lot. And now that I'm thinking about it, I don't remember her ever quoting Bush 1. Per her instructions, pour yourself some coffee, grab a pen to jot some notes, and find a quiet spot to read. Her goal is to get us thinking about these core conservative pillars and how to instill them to strengthen and support your girl's heart and mind. If you do that, you will have given your daughter a priceless and enduring gift. Chapter 1. Self-worth flows from God, not government. The greatest gift parents can give their daughter is the knowledge that she is uniquely made and unconditionally loved by God. When a girl knows that the creator of the universe cares deeply about her problems, hopes, and challenges, she learns that her self-worth is rooted in things far greater than what the world tells her. She realizes she is special, cared for, and eternally valued, that she is a child of God. It will give her an inner power like no other. Or it will make her insufferable, but alright. So Michelle says that her parents took her to church and it was just like what you did. They didn't think too deeply of it. And back then, neither she nor her parents understood the connection between faith and freedom. So per Michelle, people who believe in an eternal afterlife are dangerous, and that is why totalitarian and tyrannical governments impose atheism on their people. Believers are bold, courageous, and not afraid to sacrifice themselves for causes bigger than themselves. No dictator can tolerate people with that kind of confidence and conviction. It threatens their control and power. However, government hostility to faith doesn't always involve sanctioned atheism or killing. Modern socialism, for example, fosters government dependency. In the United States, government dependency teaches girls that their self-worth comes from food stamps, abortion clinics, and their secular education. The left's message to our daughters is that minimum wage, lousy healthcare, public housing, and a little walking around cash assistance is the best they can hope for. Those really strong social safety nets in the U.S., they really just, this is all we hope for. It's all we aspire to. We know that if anything bad happens, we have that cushion to fall back on. Oh, no, wait. This is the United States of America. We believe in bootstraps. And if you don't have any boots, that's just your own damn fault, isn't it? So rather than just reject what the left says outright, perhaps Michelle might want to consider what they're saying and how it might help her with some other goals. There is, of course, a chapter about abortion in this book because, of course, there is. And though the right's favorite talking point is how people just have abortions for convenience, the actual number one reason is financial. And if you have a higher minimum wage, because let's face it, companies are not going to raise wages out of the goodness of their hearts. It's not how they operate. Maybe back in the 50s they paid a fair wage for the labor received, but not in the 21st century. I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. And if you have a business and you can't afford to pay a livable wage, then you need to reconsider your business, and maybe you shouldn't be in business. But we will get to that, I'm sure, at some point later on. For now, I just want to note that if someone has a higher wage, public health care, so they don't have to worry about going broke when they deliver said offspring, and affordable housing, that would lower abortion rates. And I would think that would make her happy, but I guess we just have to bootstrap it. She does allow that some people often need a hand up for legitimate reasons, and they deserve compassion and support. And any one of us could be in that position one day. But consigning a girl's initiative and her self-worth to a lifetime of government programs is soul-crushing. Who is saying that someone should be on government assistance for their entire life? I can't think of anyone who has championed that. Unless she's talking about the UBI, but that is a very different thing and is going to be necessary if we continue innovating and taking away jobs that people could do and giving them to robots. That's just the way it is. It's just, I don't understand this desire to bury the head in the sand and say it's the 1950s and you can just go out and get a job at a factory and make a wage enough to support a family of 4. And the world is moving on, and if we don't keep up with it, we're going to be left behind. And I have no desire to live in a 21st century dystopia. There are plenty of studies showing how women can receive the equivalent of a middle-class income and public benefits if they get pregnant, have kids, and don't marry. But I mean, if they keep the kid, that's what counts, right? But man, now they have to keep the kid and not take public benefits? I mean, is that not just like a reason to get an abortion right there? She has a source here for this, and I'm curious. Her source is from the Cato Institute, which I know is a conservative institution, so I wonder how reliable it is, but also the URL is when welfare pays better than work. So I would think that would mean work should pay more than welfare. Also, if you have a kid and you go to work, you have to find someone to watch that kid, and I don't have kids, but I understand that finding daycare is insanely expensive, so I really don't understand what they think people should do in this situation. Just suffer? Starve? For reasons, Michelle has to differentiate self-worth from self-esteem. Self-worth is a deep understanding of one's value as a human being. It's your inner sense of importance. It can be positive or negative, and it varies by degree, but there's no greater source of self-worth than God. The great conservative thinker and author William F. Buckley once said that it is hard for a person who does not believe in God to be a conservative. If you have very little money and you're expected to make do and trust that God will provide, yeah, I can see where it would be difficult for someone who's not conservative to be like, it's fine, I don't need anything from the government, Jesus will provide for us. So self-worth is a deeply conservative concept that places the value of the individual outside of the reach of cultural forces and government. But leftists have tried to undermine the robust conception of self-worth by replacing it with self-esteem. Self-esteem makes fragile people who look to others for validation, as opposed to self-worth where you look to God for your validation. I mean, it is easier to look to God for validation than other people because people will tell you when you're being an idiot and God will say whatever it is you want him to say because he is in your head. Self-esteem can certainly be positive, but praising children for fear of hurting their feelings is a poor substitute for nurturing their true, innate value as children of a loving God. And then she talks about the participation trophy approach that permeates schools, which, I mean, that was your generation that created these participation trophies. Kids know that they mean nothing, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. Government can't build self-worth. Why? Because governments are made of people, and people are fallible. The best government can do is reflect the people that run it. Think about some of the things governments have done, like condoning slavery and the Dred Scott decision. Think about the U.S. Supreme Court's decision on abortion and how it has led to the destruction of 60 million innocent babies' lives. Government and popular culture think that's just fine, and they even celebrate it. If you're trying to make a moral argument for religion, people do bad things in the name of religion back in the day and even now. Because in the end, religion is also made up of people. Yes, said people think there is someone in the sky that talks to them and gives them advice and morality, but at the end of the day, they're getting their morality from their own head. I mean, I've never once had someone religious say to me, I thought X, but God told me no. Whatever God tells them somehow always aligns with what they want to do. So I feel this chapter could have just been this part right here. Take your daughters to church. That would have saved so much time. So at minimum, where would you rather have your daughter meet friends or, dare we say, a boy? Where better to find affirmation against the type of peer pressure that too often leads to destructive teenage behavior? So, yeah, I've heard things about preachers' kids, I'm just saying, but sure. Girls can find healthy role models and forge thoughtful friendships with other families. Churches are also run by people, and as she mentions, people are fallible. I'm sure there are some churches out there that have never had a scandal somewhere, but even in my tiny rural church, there was still the horrible kids that said they hated me, all that Christian love right there. And my teacher, I went to school there for 1 year, thankfully only 1 year because that was enough. And my teacher was cheating on his sick wife with a student's mother. And the pastor was ran out by the elders. Why? I don't know. I was too young for anyone to tell me. But one day he was there, next day he was not. And I overheard the adults talking because, well, I was a nosy kid, so there you are. But yeah, not really good role models right there in any way. And clearly they weren't good role models for the kids because the kids told me to my face, I hate you. In a Christian school. Don't give your daughter a participation trophy. Give her the truth. Is this something people actually do? Because I have not seen it with any parents I know. Tag and dodgeball are out. Subjective grading is in. Competition is viewed as evil, masculine, and rude in capitalism. Is it? I mean, there was still plenty of competition when I was in school, but as I mentioned, that was a while ago, so. Dodgeball. I liked it when I was a kid because I was really good at dodging. But looking back, it seems like a really bad idea to have a game where students are throwing stuff at each other with the object to hit someone. Although it does kind of amuse me that she apparently thinks tag should not be out because, as I recall, in tag, there was an agreed upon safe space where you couldn't be tagged if you were there. And, well, I know how Republicans feel about safe spaces, so I'm amused. I do think that you should let your kids fail because swooping in to save them leaves them as an adult with no idea how to fail, and that's really embarrassing. Loving reinforcement doesn't mean shredding an 8-year-old's painting or poem as if you're the culture critic at the New York Times. It means finding something that you like and reinforcing it. This is a great color here, or I like this phrase you used, but here's what I would do to make it even better. You're neither falsely praising nor abusing her vulnerability. You're being honest and helping your daughter grow. Yeah, that's fine. And then I switched the page, and now we're teaching modesty. It may not always be cool, but it's absolutely a virtue, and that goes for boys and girls. Immodest choices invite all manner of headaches and heartaches, and you don't have to be an easily offended prude to know it. We've all seen examples of young women making poor choices in real life and online, and it's never been easier to make a damaging misstep. Talk to your daughter about the internet and advise her never to put anything online that she wouldn't be proud to have her mother, grandmother, or a future employer see. So when I was about 10, my grandmother gave me something, I think it was a card, that said, never do anything you wouldn't be proud to tell me about, and that is true. In a world attempting to redefine prostitution as sex work and in which pornography has never been more accessible or less taboo, your daughter won't get this message from her peers. Instead, she'll face a good deal of toxic messaging telling her the opposite. Our girls are worth so much more than the lies society tells them. I can't think of anything that society has told me that I'm worth. If anyone can clear that up, I would be greatly appreciative because Michelle is being very vague. Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. So I do agree that your worth is inward and not based on outward appearances, but you are not your own. I know that's from the Bible, but I do not like that. It makes me uneasy, and it sounds as if you're never allowed to have control over your own body, which I guess is a Republican principle for women, not men, of course. Men are allowed to control their body. Princess culture creates toads. Well-meaning parents can make the mistake of raising little princesses rather than strong, graceful girls. Princesses are lovely and darling, but raising a conservative daughter also involves hard work and service. Pedestal parenting undermines a girl's independence and creates entitlement, which happen to be defining traits of liberalism and government dependency. Free stuff and princess-like adoration might sound nice. When has anyone on welfare ever been adored? So far as I've been alive, they've always been demonized and told to get back to work. I'm sure it will shock people that she says, daughters must develop a grateful and appreciative spirit if they don't want to become spoiled brats. This spirit is nurtured and cultivated by faith in God. Faith teaches girls to be thankful for what they have and to work if they want more. I really don't understand the tying of religion with capitalism. It really does not seem to go, at least in my interpretation of the Bible. Obviously, there are other ones, and that's why there's so many different ways to be Christian. But service is another cornerstone of conservatism embedded in every major faith, and for good reason. If you want your daughter to value her worth, sign her up for a service opportunity and let her see what the real world looks like. Not every kid grows up in a suburban home with an iPad, air conditioning, and a car. There are poor kids and sick people in every city and town in this country. And yet she argues against welfare. Service opportunities are limitless, and blessings begin to sink in when girls are appropriately exposed to people who are less fortunate. When she sees the real-world hardships others face, she will grow in her appreciation for God's provision and care. Or she'll be like me and wonder why God has provided me with so much and others with so little. It is good to volunteer and help out, but using that as a lesson to teach someone how they should appreciate their blessings, it just sits wrong with me. Respecting elders. Yes, that means parents too. Teaching your daughter to look towards God will also teach her to respect authority. I also find it funny how Republicans are freedom, 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 but also respect authority. When I was raising my own children, my mother was sick for 10 years before passing and needed a lot of help every day. The meaningful hours spent helping her taught my children the importance of serving the people they love. Serving their grandmother taught my children that they had obligations that came before themselves. And while they sometimes would have preferred to spend time with their friends, to this day they treasure the bond they formed with their grandmother through serving her. As my own grandmother got older, I would clean her house, get her groceries, help decorate for the holidays. And I would never have called that serving her. It was just I was being her granddaughter. I was helping and I was happy to do it because I loved my grandmother. But I don't know, framing it as serving her, it just sounds weird. Even if you didn't learn to respect your parents or have faith, you could learn the importance of respect for authority at school. Parents who want to raise conservative daughters today can't be so trusting. There are left-wing and deviant agendas in education in both public and private schools. Nowhere is safe anymore. So while I don't really agree with giving everyone blanket respect, you should be courteous and polite to everyone. And she does say bad parents deserve respect too. However, that does not mean daughters have to honor a parent's poor choices. And she advises finding an alternate role model at a church or synagogue. Church or synagogue, she's being so inclusive. Courage is the ladder on which all other virtues mount. There will be times when preserving your daughter's self-worth will require her to stand up and fight. She should be encouraged to do so with grace. Conservative girls are not docile, doe-eyed, shrinking violets who avoid conflict because they have been taught to turn the other cheek. Nor are they doormats. On the contrary, faith instills a self-worth that strengthens a girl's ability to raise her hand in class and challenge a teacher who's preaching a destructive ideology. There are ways girls can politely point out a teacher's bias. For example, if a teacher is singing the praises of a socialist economist on an issue, she can ask her teacher, "Can you share Nobel Prize-winning economist Milton Friedman's view on that?" Or if a feminist teacher is railing on about how a woman has the right to control her body and have an abortion if she wants, she can ask, "Does science tell us that her baby is part of her body or a separate human being?" What is Michelle's thing here? Does she think that teachers won't have a response for any of that? I mean, I'm not a teacher and I can still say that, well, for one, a fetus is kind of a separate human being, but it's still connected to the mother who provides the nutrients that give it life. And so far in the United States, we have never said we're allowed to use someone else's body for our own survival. I mean, teachers go to school. If they're singing the praises of something, it's probably because they know more than your daughter does. Girls are often socialized to get along. That is true. I still hate telling people no. But when a college professor lies, or when other students prevent conservative girls from bringing a pro-life speaker to campus, your daughter should know she can and should speak up and be brave. Are college professors in the habit of lying? And if other students feel that strongly about having an anti-choice speaker on campus, it is also their right to protest. So, some girls develop courage to speak up and promote conservative ideas very young, in high school or earlier. I was a senior in college before I was brave enough to start a conservative club. It took me a year of living in socialist England, before Margaret Thatcher, in a junior year exchange program to develop an intense passion for promoting freedom and begin my life's work as a conservative leader. So, Margaret Thatcher became Prime Minister in 1979. Was England not free before that? Were they socialist? Does Michelle know what socialism is? And considering it's been a while since Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister, is England socialist again? Are they not free now? Americans put a lot of value on the First Amendment, but in reality, I can think of no developed country that will have the government jail people for speaking out about the government. I also want to note that I have British relatives and they don't seem all that fond of Margaret Thatcher, so teach redemption because we all make mistakes. We all make mistakes. Your daughter will be no different, but if she believes in something bigger than herself, if she has faith, she can always turn the ship around and begin anew. Government cannot restore wounded souls. So, who has she been hanging out with that is looking to the government for money, validation, and a reason for living, I guess? But that's just not how most people view the government. And I, like most people, think the government should be there when, you need some help, because letting someone fall, right down from employed and housed into unemployed and unhoused, that does no one no favors. Faith in motion. Self-worth is a deep sense of value we have about ourselves. It needs to be nurtured. We have to get in there and fight. America was built on rules, laws, and morals. They didn't just come from out of the blue. They came from our Judeo-Christian heritage. Most conservatives accept this. Well, of course they do, because it follows their narrative that America is a Christian country. Most Americans do too. But these ideas are under attack, and they get twisted by academia, popular culture, and politicians. I'm just going to go ahead and note a book that I read last year that was really interesting when it talked about, our actual founding, not the Judeo-Christian founding that people keep saying that we have, but our actual founding, which was based on Enlightenment principles, not religion. I really feel like this last paragraph could have been the whole chapter. Don't let these forces raise your daughter. I mean, no one should let popular culture and politicians raise their kid, but what kid looks to a politician for life advice? Take her to church or synagogue, not mosque? Celebrate meaningful religious ceremonies. Pray together over meals, trips, tasks, decisions, and each other. Talk to her about government and faith. Teach your girl to be courageous, to stand up when her values are under attack. Yes, that can apply, that applies to everyone. If your daughter never hears about faith, and she never sees anything other than what's in the culture, which often degrades people of faith, really, has she heard our Pledge of Allegiance? Has she looked at our money? Has she watched any Hallmark movies? She'll be adrift when life's hardships come crashing in. When she knows she is wonderfully made, she will know that her self-worth flows from God, not government. And that is chapter 1. I've only gotten halfway through the book before giving up and deciding that I would just react to it in time instead of writing notes, because I was writing pages and pages of notes and that was taking up a lot of time. If your book requires you to fearmonger about the left in every chapter multiple times, how can you not think, I don't know, how can you not be curious about what it is you're so scared of? I mean, where does she get her information about the left? Because I'd be willing to bet it comes from Fox News. And by Fox News, I mean, someone like Tucker Carlson, not their actual news portion, which I understand to be pretty good. Like, seriously, on a daily basis, though, the government plays very, very small of a role in someone's life unless they're actually in government. I don't know. Conservatives really confuse me. I feel like what they want and their way of going about getting it is at odds. Anyway, this is almost an hour long, so I'm going to edit it to hopefully half an hour. There were some awkward silences in there whilst I looked up information regarding Margaret Thatcher. Anyway, that is it for this video. I'm not sure how often I'll do these. It's a little easier to be able to talk about the book while reading it because I just get frustrated sometimes, and it helps to be able to speak my mind and be like, what were you thinking? But 11 chapters is a lot, and that was the intro in chapter 1. So 9, 10, I believe the last chapter is just about conservative women in history. So 9, 10 chapters to go. Hopefully I'll be able to make it through like 2 and 3 in the next video. But the next chapter is about the ERA, so it's going to be a good time. Anyway, I hope everyone watching has a good day, and I will see you in the next video.